Hello, fifth grade, and welcome to Monday's lesson in math. Now, our book on the front of it says arithmetic, but today I'm going to get to teach you a little bit about geometry. So go ahead and open up your book to page 241 and 242, and that is lesson 134. So don't forget to do your speed drill for lesson 134. Now, once again, page 241. So if you take a look at our box on page 241, as well as the chart I have here, I'm going to talk a little bit about geometry. Now, geometry is the study of space or distance. It is a branch of mathematics which involves the measuring of shapes, okay? Now, the word geometry actually means to measure the earth. So geometry means to measure the earth, okay? Now, we're going to start off with our point, okay? So a point is represented by a dot. Pretty simple, right? But it is important to know that you have to have a point when you're doing certain things within geometry. You can't just start a line and not have a point, or because that may mix up things, and I'm going to show you how it mixes up things in a second. Just make sure that you know a point is the dot, okay? Now, when you go ahead and you take a look at line segment is represented by a group of points having, or a group of points having two end points. Now, a line segment is the line, but it has a point and a point, showing a beginning and showing an end, or an end and an end, basically. Okay, this would be your line segment. You have to show the points so they are indicating it's a line segment if it's on both sides, okay? The points have to be to show your line segment. Then you have congruent line. Now, congruent is line segments of the same length. So if you have two line segments next to each other, or even like, you know, this way and this way, you would end up having congruent, means they're exactly the same length. So if I have this one and then I have this one, those are not going to be congruent because they're not the same length, right? Okay, so that would be congruent. Now, a line is represented by a group of points having no endpoints, okay? So now here's what's interesting about a line. A line basically goes forever. That is indicated with the arrows. So if you see the arrows, that means the line is going on forever. It never stops. But if you see your point, you know you have your end point, and that line stopped there, okay? So our arrows mean line keeps going on forever. Our point means it has the end point and stops, okay? Then we have array. Now, array is combined by a line segment and a line, basically, because it has an end point, but then the other side is a line that keeps on going, right? So array has one end point, and then it keeps on going in the one direction. So now if I were to turn this line ray this way, right, then my direction would be going up, right? But it would still stop at like where my hand is. That would be a ray. So 1 point, 1 continue, okay? Now we have an angle. An angle is when you have two rays that share the same and common point. Now what that means is here's a ray, it stops right here. Here's a ray, it stops right here. They come together and meet together. Where they meet together is called the vertex. Okay, so if you were to go like this, no matter which way you did it, right, and you go a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, depending on how big you want to make your V, that's your vertex, because that's where the 2 points, and I make that look like a V, right? So vertex, okay? We also have intersecting lines. Now, this is when you have two lines that end up crossing over each other, and they can cross over each other at any point, but they'll never cross over each other again because they're going in opposite directions, right? This one's going that way, this one's going this way, and that way. There's only one point that intersecting lines will ever meet, just one, okay? Perpendicular lines are down here. Now, perpendicular lines go in line with our right angle. So our right angle is where we have our angle, but we have a perfectly right angle, meaning 90 degrees. This right here is the same as our angle. However, it has the box here, which shows that it's a right angle at 90 degrees. Now, when we come down to our perpendicular lines, we end up having two sets of lines that intersect, but they're in a perfect vertical and horizontal place with 90 degrees on all the sides. You will always see this, and it will always be this way for perpendicular lines. You'll always see those little squares showing the right 90-degree angle. Okay, we also have parallel lines. Parallel lines mean that they go in the same direction and they just keep on going. So no matter whether this far apart or this far apart, it doesn't matter if they're this way, it doesn't matter if they're this way, but as long as they're going in the same direction, and they're this just apart, then that would be our perpendicular lines. They never intersect. Intersecting lines intersect. Parallel lines never intersect. They keep going and they never turn because they're going in the same direction. Okay, a plane is represented by a smooth, flat surface that has no thickness and extends indefinitely in all directions. I want you to think of a plane having that smooth surface, and it continues extending in indefinite all directions. Think of a plane as in the one that flies in the sky, right? It could keep going on and on forever and just keep circling around the earth if it was full of fuel, right? If it kept getting fueled in the air, it could go on forever, and the outside of a plane is a smooth surface. So that might help you think a little bit about a plane. So we've gone over our point, our line segment, our line, our ray, our intersecting lines, our parallel lines, our angle, right angle, and we also have perpendicular lines. Our congruent angles are right here, which means they're exactly the same. So I wanted to go over that a little bit with you. That means they're exactly the same. So we can have congruent angles or we can have congruent line segments, but with congruent angles, it means that their angle is exactly the same, okay? It could be this exactly the same. It could be smaller, it could be wider, depending on what the angle is and the degrees right here, but they're always gonna be two that are exactly the same. So remember that for congruent angles. And we did go over perpendicular lines. We're not going to worry about our simple closed shape or our polygon at this point, but we will be going over those in the future. So this is introductory to geometry. I hope this helped you out a little bit and explained everything. Please take a look at number 1 and fill out and label all of these things on your page, as well as number 2 is asking you to true or false based on what I explained and what you read on your page. So go ahead and take a look at those, put true or false depending on what is accurate. And if you have any questions regarding this, please let me know. Also, enjoy doing the rest of your math today and complete all of the problems on page 241 and 242. And I will see you tomorrow for math.